Yeah, so this will be my video on Mormonism, and I'd like to try to use a little different approach. Try to give some information that maybe is not on the internet or not so common or, difficult to find information. So what I'd like to do is start off by showing a book which I bought several years ago. In fact, over 30 years ago. It's called Shadows, excuse me, Lights and Shadows of Mormonism. Lights and Shadows of Mormonism by Hosea F. Gibbs. This book happens to be over 100 years old. In fact, here's the cover. I'll show you. Here's the author, Hosea F. Gibbs. And I bought this at an antique bookstore in the late 80s. And the front cover here also, I hope you can see that. Published by the Salt Lake Tribune Publishing Company, 1909. And it also has whoever owned the book at that time. It says they wrote it, they have a signature out here. It says A. Liddell, Christ Maffo, and then 1909. So I guess that was whoever actually owned the book. But it's a rare book. And so I'd like to just read a little bit out of this book, different things about Mormonism. This is not going to be an exhaustive video. I am going to include some links in the description which will give you some very good videos. One of them will be an interview that it was done many years ago, where it was the John Ankerberg show had Sandra Tanner. I believe she said she is the great-great-granddaughter of Brigham Young. So she was on the show, and she explained a lot about Mormonism, and she had a very good book, which I can include the link to that, the name of that book and the link. I did have that book several years ago, but unfortunately, I no longer have that book. But it was a very exhaustive book. I remember probably over 600 pages. Lots of documentation. Showed lots of original letters from that era when Mormonism first began. So anyway, right now I'd like to read a little bit about what I found in this book. I'm going to start out by talking about this is something that Brigham Young quoted. I'm going to say, it says, Adam is our father. Quote, Adam is our father and God, and the only God with whom we have to do. Now hear it, O inhabitants of the earth, Jew and Gentile, saint and sinner. When our father Adam came into the Garden of Eden, he came into it with a celestial body and brought Eve, one of his wives, with him. He helped to make and organize this world. He is Michael, the archangel, the Ancient of Days, about whom holy men have written and spoken. He is our Father and our God, and the only God with whom we have to do. That was out of the Journal of Discourses, Volume 1, page 50, April 9th, 1852. All right, now, so the next thing I would like to read is an account which Joseph Smith, when he was young, he was talking about these golden plates which he claimed that he found. And I'm going to read a little bit about this. It says, quote, the plates, as described by those who claim to have seen them, were about 8 inches in length by about 6 inches in width, and formed a book about 6 inches thick. The leaves or plates were quite thin, and upon them were closely engraved hieroglyphics said by the prophet to be reformed Egyptian. So the prophet there, they're speaking about Joseph Smith. Okay, now from what I remember, Moroni is the name of the angel that appeared to Joseph Smith, or that he claimed appeared to him and told him about these golden plates. Okay, now, all right, so another thing I'd like to read is, this is a little bit to do with the history of the Mormonism, and it talks about I'll read it. It said, quote, "At the time of the confusion of the tongues that stopped work on the Tower of Babel, the brother of Jared, whose name was subsequently revealed to Joseph Smith to be Mahanri Marian Kummer, was warned by the Lord to take his family and a few of his friends and journey eastward to the wilderness bordering on the Pacific Ocean. Under instructions of the Lord, several barges were constructed in which the small colony crossed the Pacific and presumably landed on the east coast of the Gulf of California. The colony gradually spread over Mexico, and during the lapse of about 2,000 years became a great nation. Cities and temples were built, and a high state of civilization attained," unquote. This was speaking about the Jaredites. I guess that's what the Mormons refer to them as, Jaredites, which is, Jared was the brother of Moroni, I believe. So let's see. All right, now let me go ahead and continue a little bit. And this talks about when Christ came to America. The Mormons believe that after Christ was resurrected, that he visited America. So again, I'm going to read this. It says, quote, "After his resurrection in Jerusalem, Jesus visited the Nephites and established his church among them. During a brief period, the Nephites obeyed the commandments of the Lord, but dissensions soon split the people into warring factions. Weakened by internecine strife, the Nephites became an easy prey to their old enemy, the Lamanites. One after another, the Nephite cities were abandoned, and the inhabitants forced northward along the isthmus towards North America. After retreating through eastern Texas, the Nephites pursued a northeasterly course into the country now known as northern New York," unquote. Okay. Let's see. So let me continue now. This speaks about the first revelation given to the church. It says, quote, "The first revelation given to the church was to the effect that a history or record should be kept in which Joseph Smith should be called a translator, prophet, seer, and elder of the church, and an apostle of the Lord Jesus Christ. That the spirit of meekness by which the gentle Nazarene won his following was conspicuous by its absence is amply proved by Mrs. Lucy Smith's biography of herself and Joseph, one instance of which will be given. Very naturally, the curiosity of the people for miles around was aroused by reports of Joe Smith's Gold Bible." Then I'm going to jump a little bit. It talks about, quote, "Soon after the translation of the record," which I guess, according to this, Joseph Smith and his wife translated these golden plates. "Soon after the translation, several gentlemen called on Mrs. Smith and asked, 'Mrs. Smith, we hear that you have a gold Bible. We have come to see if you will be so kind as to show it to us.' 'No, gentlemen,' said I, we have no gold Bible, but we have a translation of some gold plates which have been brought forth for the purpose of making known to the world the plainness of the gospel, and also to give a history of the people which formerly inhabited this continent." Unquote. So they believe that Jesus, after he was resurrected, he visited the United States. He visited the Native Americans and established a church in the United States. Well, it would have been at that time America. Also, they say that the Garden of Eden in the Bible is right now located approximately at the location of Independence, Missouri. Okay, let's see. Now I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. This speaks about the polygamy, part of the polygamy that was going on at the time of Brigham Young. I'm going to read again. It said, quote, "It is important to state that Brigham Young's attendant for Lee was so great that he adopted him by sealing into his celestial family. Lee's standing in the church may be inferred from the fact that between Nauvoo and Salt Lake City, and during the subsequent years, he was the contented husband of 19 wives. On that subject, Lee's personal statement will be interesting and is given as follows." By the way, Lee, when they speak of Lee, they're speaking about a John D. Lee, who at that time, back in 1836, he was living in Duck Creek, which is Fayette County, Illinois, and he was 24 years old. He was a Mormon elder at that time, and he also had an acquaintance with Joseph Smith. So I guess they were pretty close. It sounds like to me they were good friends. So this is who they're speaking about when they talk about Lee. But I'll continue. It says, quote, this is Lee's personal statement. It said, quote, "I took my wives in the following order. First, Agatha Ann Woolsey. Second, Nancy Berry. Third, Louisa Free, now one of the wives of Daniel H. Wells. Fourth, Sarah C. Williams. Fifth, old Miss Woolsey. She was a mother of Agatha Ann and Rachel A. I married her for her soul's sake, for her salvation in the eternal state. Sixth, Rachel A. Woolsey. I was sealed to her at the same time that I was to her mother. Seventh, Andorra Woolsey, sister to Rachel. Eighth, Polly Ann Workman. Ninth, Martha Berry. 10th, Delethea Morris. In 1847, while at Council Bluffs, Brigham Young sealed me to 3 women in one night. So my 11th was Nancy Armstrong. She was what we called a widow. She left her husband in Tennessee in order to be with the Mormon people. 12th, Polly V. Young. 13th, Louisa Young. These 2 were sisters. Next, I was sealed to my 14th wife, Emmeline Vaughn. In 1851, I was sealed to my 15th wife, Mary Ann Williams. In 1858, Brigham Young gave me my 17th wife, Emma Vatchelder. I was sealed to her while a member of the territorial legislature. Brigham Young said that Isaac C. Haight, H-A-I-G-H-T, who was also in the legislature, and I needed some young women to renew our vitality. So he gave us both a dashing young bride. In 1859, I was sealed to my 18th wife, Teresa Morris. I was sealed to her by order of Brigham Young. Amasa Lineman officiated at the ceremony. The last wife I got was Ann Gorge. Brigham gave her to me, and I was sealed to her in Salt Lake by Herbert C. Kimball. By my 18 real wives, I have been the father of 64 children. 10 of my children are dead, and 54 are still living. So that is just a few interesting things that I was able to find in this book, which I may put it on eBay soon. But that is a few interesting things that I did read. And so I would be very skeptical, to say the least, of this particular denomination. I would caution anyone who is thinking about becoming a Mormon. I would caution them. I would say do a lot of homework. This is not, as far as what I believe, this does not show, or the Mormon religion is what I would consider as a cult. That would be my opinion. So again, though, you can go ahead and look at the link in my description, and you'll see the links to the other information that I'm going to include. Please look at that, because that is very good. So I guess for now, that's about it. Thank you for listening, and please subscribe.